This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right, and good morning, Randy.
Morning, Terry. How you doing?
Doing great, man. It's a Saturday morning.
Oh, at that. Yes, it is.
Yeah, Saturday after Valentine's Day. So hopefully you remembered that the middle of the week. We probably should have reminded you last week, but hopefully you had a good Valentine's Day.
Oh, I did. I missed sort of kind of not being able to do a dinner to VFW because of this here knee. So hopefully I'll be back before long.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I need a good steak. I like the breakfast too, so that's coming up soon. But enough about that. How's it been going this week in construction?
Pretty good. Doing a lot of estimates. Golly, what really bothers me is price of materials and insurances was a big one.
Yep.
Last week when I got renewing all my workman's comp liability and automobile insurance, because see, I don't keep regular insurance on my trucks like a homeowner does.
Sure. Yeah, yours is more of a work tool in a way.
Correct. It's a commercial insurance. And one thing that really has always scared me is a lot of people look on their homeowner policy, they only value $25,000 for an injury to the other person in the wreck.
Right.
And, that could come back if you got your house paid for. That could come back to you losing your house to take care of these people.
Sure. Yeah.
So I keep $1 million on that part of the policy just for that reason.
Well, I mean, that's it, right? Like it's that's what insurance is for, right? Just to kind of protect you. And so the trick is to make sure it protects you. And I think overall, it seems like insurance policies, the average person doesn't know enough about the insurance policy, I feel like. And I'm throwing myself in that same situation. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of my insurance as much as I should.
Well, we need to get an insurance person back on the TV. On the radio, sorry. I'm multitasking while we're talking,
It's all right. Well, we've been
we
doing some
had
videos. It's
insurance people on before. But, insurances change every year.
Right.
And so you really don't know what's covered and what's not covered.
Exactly.
And I'll have to, you need to check your policy every year.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's the key, right? Is to again just to check it because, and like I said, I'm pointing all my fingers at me too because I don't check it, and it's like you just send a lot of times we just send in the payment, send it in. Maybe when we first got the policy, we kind of look it over, but normally even then it's like, okay, I got basic coverage. Okay, cool. And I think a lot of times we just don't understand the ins and outs, and especially when it comes to homeowners insurance and when we live here in the high country where we have to worry about, things like snow or ice damage or wind damage, we have to figure out, like, am I covered for all that?
Correct. And I got to give the state of North Carolina credit for not raising the rates like they wanted. Somebody wanted to raise the rates 42% on all homeowners. That'd been a hell of a lick.
Woo! 42%. Wow. Right?
Yeah, well, that was knocked out. It wasn't voted on, but I hadn't heard if there's going to be an increase or not because everybody knows that our property taxes went up.
Yep.
And it is the state of North Carolina is changing, but what really bothers me is we're paying for Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, California. Every time every state has a catastrophic event, the rest of the country's insurance goes up to help pay for those because the insurance company's losing money.
Right.
And I just don't agree with that. And to give you an idea, remember the World Trade Centers got knocked down by airplanes.
Right.
Everybody and we don't pay it now. I don't know when it went off, but everybody paid 2% extra on their workman's comp to help pay for those buildings
Right.
for years. And if you take, I don't know how many contractors are in the United States, but if every contractor, had to pay 2% on their workman's comp, it wouldn't be long that we should have had those buildings paid for.
Right.
But then again, we're not in New York City.
Right.
And they have union wages where we don't have union wages in the South.
Right. Well, to answer your question, by the way, construction companies, there are listed. Now, this is like, the official. This doesn't go by the fly-by-night people. These are the people with license. 618,000 general contractors. And that doesn't count, plumbing, electrical, roofing companies. That's just general contractors.
Or residential contractors,
Right.
see, because there's a difference.
Right.
Residential contractor can't step into the commercial world.
Right.
Okay. Where a general contractor in the state of North Carolina holds 5 different licenses. Okay.
Yep.
Where a residential contractor holds 3, or that's what it used to be. But
Sure.
you never know because times changes.
Yeah.
Even the state of North Carolina has recognized that. It used to be that up till last year when we have to have this class every year, that a non-licensed entity couldn't cross $30,000
Right.
in work. North Carolina has raised that to $40,000, and the reason for that is one of the explanations is you take cedar shake roofs, okay? You take slate roofs, stuff like that. Even certain standing seam metal roofs are crossing $40,000, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So even a roofer has to go get a contractor's license once it crosses $40,000
Sure.
in work. And, I have argued for the last 30 years that everybody needs a license.
Right.
Not just to, pinpoint people out, but just the point of people need to pay attention to what they're doing, okay? Because,
Sure.
you've seen it out there.
Yep.
Where a guy starts his business. Well, I want to go into business for myself, but he had never worked in the construction field. And we've talked about homeowners don't pay attention to the codes like a contractor does.
Exactly.
Okay?
Right.
Or you've heard the saying, "I can't see it from my house, or I don't care in 100 years what happens to it."
Yep.
And
Well.
but a contractor, a good contractor, whether residential, general contractor, has a different outlook because he wants to try to build better.
Sure. Well, and that's it, right? Like, it goes. It's for a couple reasons, but a lot of that is goes back to the pride of the company, right? Like, you want to stay in business, so you want to, first of all, have a good product to put out. Like, no one would go into business and say, "I want to have a terrible product." You're not going to last long. But there's a point where the rubber meets the road, right? And that's where that's where you find the quality of the right business, and that goes for any business, but especially in contracting work where you're producing something physical, a house, a roof, something like that. The quality and the craftsmanship is what makes or breaks a business 99% of the time.
Correct. It is. And, I guess I was very fortunate growing up in this, like I said, I started driving nails at 14. Me and my brother, he was 13, I was 14, working for our father. And our father was quite finicky about what he did, And then it went on for the people that I worked for. My 16-year-old, I worked for Buncombe Construction. And in the summertime on Beach Mountain, and we built all those roundhouses up the intermediate slope.
Yeah.
But then I went to work in 79 for the same guy I started with when I was 14, and I moved to Myrtle Beach. And so that gave me a new type of house to build, because we didn't build houses on crawl space and block foundation. Everything was slab on grade.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of crucial, right? Is a good contractor is going to have some experience and some knowledge of more than one thing. I mean, I say that like we don't have a cookie cutter house here in the high country. I mean, I know we can buy a modular house, I get that, but there's not like one modular fits all the needs here in the high country. There's so much work you got to do before you get to that stage.
Correct. And, I've seen work in the last 10 years and that I wouldn't allow to happen. I'd lose money before I'd allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. Looking at other countries, that's good enough. Nobody see it.
Right.
And but we talk about all the aspects of the project, and one of the best subs I've lost was Buck Welber.
Right.
And his insulation company. And I liked what they did. They dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And we actually made everything Buck ever did for me was excellent work.
Right.
And I was very fortunate that a lot of these subs that I were with me over 20-some years.
Sure. Yep.
Well, they aged out.
Right. Yep.
And there comes a time for everybody to retire. But most of your plumbers, your electricians, heat and air guys are quite disciplined about what they have to do.
Right. Well, and that's it. And again, that's what makes and breaks a company. And I will say, Randy, that before we take a break here, that the one thing those, it's good enough kind of people, one thing they're good for is those Facebook reels. It's been great to watch.
Some of that stuff I've seen you on.
We love it, man. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back right after these. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, we want to thank all of our listeners out there. And thanks, those listening on the podcast as well as those listening on WATA. And share this with your friends. And Randy, we gotta think we got some loyal listeners. And we were talking about this over the week and last weekend. We've got some loyal listeners out there. We got guys like Skip. We've got guys like Dave and Bill that listen all the time and contact us throughout the week, and we appreciate that, and all the other people that I'm not mentioning by names, we really appreciate that, don't we?
Yeah, and the questions that they send, and we'll try to answer any question that we can answer. If we can't, we'll try to find it.
I was going to say we like to do research, so there's not much we haven't figured out in the process.
We are all on the IBC code. But each state has a little different code.
Right.
And it's all similar, but they have to meet the demands on what the code is like. Beach Mountain has the same code as far as wind codes as the coast does, but in the coastal regions, there's a different framing that you have to use on the houses.
Right. Sure.
That we don't have to because the framing down here is on post, where up in Beach Mountain is on foundation.
Right.
And
see, that's that. I don't know. I guess I just don't understand. Like, why is there such a difference? Is it because of the terrain, or is it because of the wind? Like, what makes it different? I guess.
Okay. Very good question. Now, think about a deck, 10 foot wide.
Right.
Goes the whole length of your house. Okay. That is considered a sail. So when wind hits it, it always has enough lift or a down or a push down, okay?
Gotcha.
Here at the coast, you got the house up on pillars, so all the air can come under it. So it's totally fighting the forces of up and down the whole time of its life.
Right.
Okay? So most of the houses, coastal area houses close to the beach, where you have to build them to a certain height. You have to have a surveyor come out here and shoot the bottom of your foundation to make sure that you meet the requirements for the state of North Carolina.
Gotcha.
And that includes plumbing traps, heat ducts, anything can't be lower than what the state says it can be. So another thing that we don't have to do in the mountains is we go with a mud seal, we go with a house band, okay,
Right.
and then we start our house. Well, down here at the coast, you'll have to do the whole house with LVLs, double LVLs around to hold that structure rigid, so it can't rack.
Gotcha.
So that house on poles is like an axis. Every time it can shift.
Sure.
You don't want it to shift.
Right.
I mean, it can't stay rigid, but it does have to be rigid enough that, it doesn't shake itself apart, okay?
I'm with you now. Yeah.
And good indication about underbuilding was that bridge in Washington State we all grew up to watching the wind racket.
Right, where it looks like, going back and forth.
Because of the harmonics of the way it was built.
Right.
And my wife had a fit when we went across the Mackinac Bridge.
That's what I was thinking of. No, I was thinking that same thing. Yeah.
But the Mackinac Bridge, had grates on it, so it allowed the wind to travel through.
Right.
I don't know if it ever did blow a Volkswagen off. I couldn't tell you that, but that was the story that ever.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yep. So.
And
well, again, there's so much, I guess, science that goes into construction that we don't realize, and even 200 years ago, 100 years ago, like there was science behind it, but it was more trial and error. They knew what worked and what didn't work, and that's really, how the science end of it in the modern times have come about, right? Like they've taken these practices that worked and figured out why they worked, and then we can improve on them, and that's, I don't know, that's growth, right? But
yeah, but to give you an idea, when they test the house, they test any kind of structure. They test it with a track hoe.
Right.
Okay. That track hoe has a scale on it, so the scale tells it how many pounds per square foot it takes to make this house fall apart.
Wow. Okay.
So they'll build a total wooden house, and they'll do the wood the technology with all the clips, hangers.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do the test with the bolt that runs from the top plate that ties to the rafter. It goes all the way down to the concrete footer. Okay, I mean that's some states are that bad.
Right.
On codes, and that's because of high wind area. And then they'll take that track hoe, and they'll grab that house in that section, and they'll pick it up, and they'll see how high or how much pounds it takes to make that house release off that footer.
Yeah.
Or the footer breaks.
That's cool. Well, it's kind of like the car crash dummies you see on TV commercials, where they're checking the cars. It's the same thing, only with buildings and houses. So
I got to watch the seismic test for earthquake places. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they put plywood on the wall, and they made it subject to an earthquake. Well, plywood delaminates.
Yep.
All right. OSB, they did the same thing. All right, with OSB, even though it's 7/16, and you put it on with 8-penny nails, the OSB will shear the nails off. Right. And that's just unimaginable to think that a nail would shear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in those cases there, even though you're using plywood or OSB, you might still have to put T-bracing in.
Yep.
Okay? And that's to keep the lateral movement. I'm not an engineer, but some of these things are key to high wind areas.
Exactly.
And sometimes our North Carolina code doesn't address T-bracing except when you eliminate sheeting on the outside.
Right.
Okay? And but it is a good thing to put on your houses in high wind areas.
Sure.
But get on the Simpson book. If you're going to build something, they have shear walls, shear panels that will go in a wall that will bolt to your top of your block, and go up and bolt to your top plate.
Yeah, okay.
And it's a pretty hefty piece of metal.
Gotcha.
And you take, well, see, Florida's not a big deal. Let's go down there because, like your garage door opening, will have a big steel pillar with an I-beam across it, and that's to keep it from racking in high winds when the door's open.
Right.
Okay? Or the door gets blown in. And we're up in the mountains, same thing, up high. If that's what the engineer calls for, that's what you got to put in.
So I'm with you.
Then it's up to you to make sure you got it insulated so the thermal breaks so it doesn't transfer the cold into the house and be frosting on the inside and causing dry rot.
Yeah, that'd be bad, wouldn't it?
So, I mean, there's a lot of different things there. And getting back to the old structures of the, 20s, 30s, and 40s,
Mm-hmm.
everybody put their wood on diagonal on a house. Even
Right.
the flooring was on a diagonal. Nobody ever run anything straight. Everything's on 45 degrees. So that's the reason those houses held together.
See, and I never really understood why we went away from that because it doesn't take more wood to do it that way. It just takes more cutting, I guess.
No, it takes a lot more wood.
You think so? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, you gotta.
Most of your plywood's made out of pine or poplar.
Well, that's fair. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so you can take it and put it in a veneer machine
Yeah, you're right.
and veneer it off and laminate it. The only thing that really bothers me is I remember when I was a kid. Remember, plywood's on odd numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen half-inch plywood all the way up, CDX all the way up to 7 layers in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're down to 3 layers.
Yeah.
So I try to pay attention to what kind of plywood or where I buy it because I would like an extra layer in there.
Sure. Yeah. No, the more layers, the more stable it's going to be. For sure.
Yeah. And the industry changes, like the zip panels.
Mm-hmm.
We see with the green on the outside, they have come a long ways. And, so can I back up just a second?
Yeah, we'll put it in reverse.
Okay, so if we have plywood or OSB on the outside of the house, then we know we have to house wrap it, okay?
Mm-hmm. Right.
If we use blackboard, and I had this discussion with the designer this last week about blackboard because of the expense of it. And blackboard and the zip panel, and what I mean by the zip panel is that you're seeing a lot of houses built with the green outside.
The green stuff, right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And those don't require to have house wrap on because if you put house wrap on them, it's a double vapor barrier.
Yeah. Okay.
But with the blackboard, you have to put the T-bracing in the corners, okay?
Okay.
And we went back and remodeled a lot of houses built in the 50s and 60s that had the blackboard, and the blackboard was still fine, okay?
Right.
And people got away from it because it's just not structural. They
Right.
do make a structural blackboard, but it's 2 inches thick, and the designer said, wow, I didn't even know they made it. And, well, he said you could drive a truck across it. It's so strong.
That's cool.
Because of the weight requirement.
Right. That's neat. Well, cool.
But each one, you have to pay attention to the manufacturer's installed specifications.
Right. And that's the key to everything, right? We harp on that all the time. But you've got to do it. That's what covers you under the warranties. And that's what, the practical side, that's what it's meant to do. Like if you put it on the way they mean it to put on, it's obviously, a good tested product is just that, right? If you follow those manufacturing specifications, then you're going to live up to their testing.
Correct. And we got to talking about the codes. North Carolina has taken the code book off the internet. You can't get it for free now.
Well, and that's a double-edged sword, in my opinion. I mean, I get it. I guess it makes contractors be licensed. It just keeps people like me from going out, I guess, and pulling it off and saying, "Yeah, I'm a contractor because I have the code."
Well, not necessarily, but the thing about it is, you've heard me push on the radio about if you want to do your own projects, get on and look it up.
Yep.
You can still look it up, but I do have the code book on my computer.
Right.
And I'd rather have a hard copy anyhow, any day of the week than the computer, because you can throw your code book in the truck and go on.
Right.
And but it helps helps anybody that has a problem to try to look it up.
Sure.
And that probably even saved the state of North Carolina a lot of calls down to the licensing board or the insurance.
I'm sure.
When you call them, you're calling the North Carolina Insurance Bureau on construction.
Yep.
But they will answer your questions.
Sounds good. Well, let's take another break, Randy, and we'll come right back right after this.
All right.
Thanks for listening to us. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. Thanks for listening to us, and we do appreciate all of our listeners out there, both on the podcast and on the WATA live stream on Saturday mornings. So thanks for listening to us. And Randy, so I've got a couple of questions here, some homeowner questions, Randy, that we've got kind of compiled. And like I said, we always like to hear from our listeners, and we got the Facebook page, All About Home Construction on Facebook, where people can reach out to us. We've got an email address, allabouthomeconstruction@gmail.com. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can also contact us straight from there. The links in the show notes kind of gets you there. So lots of ways to get in touch with us. And got some questions in, Randy. You ready for a few?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Well, I don't have anything I'm nothing to stump you on. These are all sort of like I need help kind of things. But one of the first questions I have on the list was like, as a contractor, how often do you provide updates on the project for the homeowner?
Every time they call, most time. A lot of homeowners that I work with, we give them a once a week update, what's going on, what's happening, and stuff like that. And I really think that it's important to be able to talk to people about it and say, hey, if we got a problem here, we need to address, and it's really important. And like I give we're doing a project to remodel now. Mm-hmm. And, in the mountains, we don't always have the luxury of doing what we want to do because of the weather, especially outside or inside. And I've just been one of them people that, unfortunately, always get stuck on the outside.
Right.
And during the winter time. But this year, we've spent our time down in Caldwell County on a project, and it's been about 15 degrees warmer down there.
Right.
And so we had to drive a little further, but we're done with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you're able to work every day.
Yeah. Well, we try to work no matter what happens, We've even been on Beach Mountain in the middle of winter work.
Yep.
And so it's just a matter of, just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you go, I guess that's the reason we've been in business coming up on 36 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key, right? And communication is the key in any business, and I think that's sort of what you're, that's what you're talking about is you make yourself available. Of course, then it comes on the homeowner some responsibility of not. I mean, you can't be overbearing. I couldn't call you every night and be like, "What'd you do today, Randy?" Like that. That's a little excessive. So it takes some common sense, I think, on both sides, so to speak, when it comes to that. But yeah, weekly updates. I guess would weekly updates be a reasonable thing for a homeowner to expect?
Yes, but not every day.
Right.
I used to be very patient with people. And and talk to them and stuff.
Yep.
But have you ever heard the saying? The homeowner says it's my money. No, it's not. It's my money now. Okay? All right, because I'm the one doing the job. It's no longer your money.
Yeah.
But the point of it is, we try to accommodate to everything they need.
Right.
But we actually. You're always told to have a change order signed,
mm-hmm.
okay? Well, we actually had a homeowner that wanted to make a change in the middle of the project, and I would not change, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what we agreed upon. This is what we were doing.
Right.
So the homeowner didn't pay me at all.
Right.
Well, 2.5 years later, after we finally got everything in court and everything, he had to pay it all plus the legal fees.
Right.
Because
that's what the contract
is because of the daily logs that we keep. All my employees keep a daily log on what happens, okay?
Right. Okay.
And it just happened to be that day that everybody was sitting in the office, and I put it on speakerphone so everybody got to hear the conversation because they knew that the customer was wishy-washy.
Right.
Yeah. And that was put in the logbooks that it was on speakerphone.
Sure. Well, good.
And so we were able to beat that person in court because of it.
Nice. All right. Well, I got two more questions here that relate to two separate questions, but they're both about water. The first one is water heaters. What maintenance? I mean, I know there's like to drain a water heater or to not drain a water heater. In just the maintenance, I guess you would say, of a water heater. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if you're on well water and you have access to a valve and you have a lot of sediment in your well like I do.
Yep.
I just happen to have a floor drain that's 5 foot away. And I'll put I have one of these little cheap hoses, spring hoses, that goes about 10 foot.
Yep.
And I'll run it down that floor drain, and I'll open it up every other month just to get the sediment out.
Okay.
And a lot of people, now, I've been told this from the town of Boone, that a lot of people are getting so that they're having to drain their hot water heaters because of broke water lines and then the sediment get in the line.
Yep.
Because they're getting a lot of sediment from city water.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
And so I would do it at least twice a year in the city, and I'd do it every other month in the country.
Okay. That's fair.
Especially if you have a water filter that, gets dirty within 30 days. Yeah.
Now, when you're doing the renovations or new construction, is that something that you think about, is like where the water heater is going to go because of that draining?
Correct. And, but see, not every house today has a floor drain where you have it. So now you might have to drag a hose through the house. Right.
And that's what I was, what I'm thinking is like so many times you see the water heater, in the basement in the back corner. And so I guess that should be something we think of in the planning stages is keeping it not at the door, but keeping it close enough to the door you can run a hose out.
Correct. And, a lot of designers don't even think anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. Like, that's one of those overlooked things. And
A lot of half bathrooms in basements have a toilet in it.
Yep.
So you can actually run it in the toilet.
Okay, that makes sense. Some kind of drain, I guess.
But it was important, and we did a house in 2008, and they were adamant about having a Renai, hot water heater.
Yeah.
Hot water on demand, gas. Okay. And I said that's fine. And great clients to work for. We still maintain that house today. And so I just went ahead and bought, at that time, I bought a 30-gallon hot water heater and put, here was the water filter. So then the next thing I did was put the 30-gallon hot water heater, and then it went into the Renai.
Mm-hmm.
So if they ever had anything that was sediment get out of the filter, it automatically would fall to the bottom of the electric hot water heater.
Right.
And then, see, this Renai hot water heater was made to do 3 showers and a dishwasher going off at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So we give quite a bit of money for it. And now you wouldn't think that if you drove by the house, you wouldn't think this house had 7 bedrooms in it either.
Right. Okay.
So when they have a big family, and that's the whole idea of them buying the house. And so when everybody gets there, they can turn that 30-gallon hot water heater on so it pre-charges the Renai and it never runs out of hot water at all.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Okay, cool.
I mean, that's a little overkill, but the point of it is it worked great for them, and it's still working great. And
As someone who's got four teenagers, I think that would be a great plus. So yeah, love it. All right, the other question.
$100 for that hot water heater.
That's great, man. That's clever. I'm jealous. All right, the other question is about frozen pipes. I know, maybe. We've kind of hit the coldest spell probably of the year, but it is still winter. And what's your step of thawing out pipes?
Well, depends on where the location is, okay? And you hear every year of people's houses burning down because the space heater is put underneath a crawl space.
Right.
You cannot do that at all.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's just an accident waiting to happen, I think, a lot of times.
So what we have done is, yes, you have to have somebody standing there, but we'll open the door on the crawl space door, and we'll keep that space heater back about 3 foot from that opening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So we're getting heat in there, but we're not. Yes, you are getting some combustible monoxide coming in, but we keep it out of there so it doesn't,
you're not getting the whole
cause any fire, any combustibles gets in.
Yep.
And but the foam, the foam tape or not foam, but the foam inserts that you can put on the pipelines,
right?
If they're installed correctly, if you miter the corners around the T's and elbows and stuff like that, and glue them together, then that's good for 20 degrees. Okay, believe it or not.
But no one does that. They just slap it on. No one miters the corners and cares about the joints. How many times have you looked under a house and you see those little 4 or 5 foot sections, and then do you see a section that's missing, and then they're usually missing on the corners and elbows. Because no one wants to do that.
Or you see where the guy installed it and didn't pull the tape where it glues itself together, back together and makes a seal.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always see. And and really, if you look, most of the time when pipes freeze, typically it's in the elbows and joints.
Yes, and that's the reason when the PEX came out, not the gray PEX,
mm-hmm.
but the clear PEX, or the white PEX, or the red or blue and stuff, and you could buy them in rows.
Yeah.
Manifolds used to be real expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by manifolds is, here's your hot water heater and your water inlet cold, and so one side's hot, one side's cold, and you run home runs to everything that you have.
Okay.
Okay. So instead of putting elbows and T's and stuff like that in, you're just running a bend in it. And they have clamps that will do a bend in it. Works great in 2x6 walls. Not very practical on 2x4 walls, but
Sure.
let's say in a crawl space where you're not going to, have to do all that. So you can start the manifold, come up, bend, come across the floor system, then come up, and then just go straight into the floor without doing a 90.
Yeah.
And run up, and then your first tee will be up inside the wall. But there again, if your crawl space is not so big, it's worth your while to go ahead and insulate your block.
See, that's what I'm thinking. It's like the insulation to keep it out to begin with. So keep the cold out to begin with. So, yeah.
Correct. And I built my addition on my house with ICF foundations, and regardless if it's block or anything, I still like to pour everything solid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason for that is it just makes a good connection from your footer to your wall, to your mud seal, to your house. So you have all that weight that's there holding itself.
Yep.
And that's just my preference.
That's it.
And it used to be when I started in '87, you had to put a piece of rebar in every fourth cell and pour it. The only difference is, as the concrete started filling up in your walls, yes, it filled up segments.
Yep.
But then you might have 4 foot from the top of the wall that doesn't have any concrete in it. So when you stucco it, and regardless if you stucco it to the 3-coat system, it looks like it has small stress cracks in it.
Right.
Because the hollow block expands faster than the poured block.
Mm-hmm. Makes a difference. All right, Randy.
Yep.
Let's take a break.
All right.
We'll come right back right after this. Thanks for listening to us. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. And Randy, we're winding things down, but I appreciate all the good tips this morning.
Well, I'll try.
It's been fun, man. I tell you, I love answering the questions too. And again, we just ask people to always contact us. We love answering questions and figuring stuff out. So,
I think the biggest thing about people is that they don't realize the cost of stuff today.
Right. Yep. No, you're dead on that. And things have changed so much and they fluctuate so much, just like the gas prices, right? And so it's hard to have a long-term plan cost wise. And so yeah, but again, keeping that open, honest communication is the biggest part of it, right?
Yep, that's it.
So.
And as a homeowner, you need to know what you want up front. Okay.
Yep. Sure.
And the reason I say that is because, as a rule of thumb, every time you make a change, there needs to be a $500. You need to pay the contractor $500 to refigure your change.
Gotcha.
Okay. And people don't realize that, but that is part of it. We're there to work, but we're not there to work for free.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
And and discuss it before the bidding process starts.
Exactly
Exactly what you want.
Sounds good. Well, Randy, I think that's another show in the books, and I guess we're gonna hop off and let people enjoy their lovely President's Day weekend. So thanks again for listening to us, All About Home Construction here on WATA. Thanks for the podcast listeners out there, All About Home Construction. Just ask your smart speakers to play it. Google it. We're on YouTube. Share it with friends. Randy, we'll see you around, man. Take it easy.
Bye.